here we are in eclipse season, and I'm already contradicting myself. So I had my first venture back into Magical Reawakening radio in a long time last week, right? Released the podcast, season 2, uploaded, so excited. I set a goal for myself for every full moon, new moon to release podcast episodes because I didn't want to overwhelm myself, right? But I was on such an exciting, feeling enthusiastic after last week, and then suddenly we're now in this week, and eclipse season is rocking hard. And I just knew I needed to record again this week to share, to show up, to ask how everyone's doing. And maybe we'll make this a weekly thing and not an every other week. I'm just going with it right now, okay? Welcome to eclipse season, right? Speaking of, how are you all feeling? Because I'm rolling with it. I'll say that. Even knowing what I know about how it works, there are still times where it can, be a little overwhelming. So it's a little overwhelming. I'll give it that. Trying to live in that hangman energy, trying to allow, trying to also work through it, which is really important. And so we're definitely doing those things. Did you figure out where in your chart this eclipse is hitting? If you remember from last week, if you watched last week, if you listened last week, I shared that the south node, so where things are being cleared out, the south node for me is in my house of career. It's in my house of showing up. And I shared that in my spread that I did when I looked into, okay, how can I best work with this energy? And I used my eclipse spread, which you can find on my Patreon. In the free tier, you still have to be a member, but you can be a member of the free tier and get still a lot of great resources, including my monthly readings. And so I shared there the spread that I use. I also have a workbook in the paid tier of the Hierophant tier, which is my teaching tier. There's also a workbook on how to work with the eclipses if you want to do it for yourself, right? So I use that spread. And in my house of career, so my 10th house, the card that I pulled was the Three of Swords. And essentially, I am giving myself exposure therapy, is what it feels like, right? So, the Three of Swords, when it shows up, the card itself is it's a heart in a cloud with rain all around it, and there are three swords piercing the heart. Now, if we know about tarot, and even if we don't, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So, swords are words, swords are thoughts, swords are air, okay? And so those represent things that can come through and then pierce our heart, right? Our emotions, our feelings. Okay, so if you're watching the video, I have the Three of Swords up on the screen now. So we have these three swords piercing into this heart. We have clouds, we have rain. Now, rain again represents water. Water is those emotions. Water is our intuition. Water is our feelings coming through, right? And so when we see clouds in the tarot, that tends to be like how intuition comes through, right? We have these thoughts that kind of float through the air. Okay, so our thoughts are there, our emotions there, and then we've got the pain of these three swords hurting the heart. Okay, but when that happens, it's a reminder that the words that we're hearing, the thoughts that we're hearing, sometimes it's external thoughts or words, external words coming towards us. Sometimes it's our own thoughts of what is someone else thinking, but we don't actually know. And now we're taking those things and we're shoving them into our own emotions, and we're causing ourselves more pain than we need to be feeling at the time. If we let ourselves sit with the emotions and let it all wash away, then we can clear it out. Okay. So that was my card. And so I'm doing what I'm considering exposure therapy, in the sense of I'm actually trying to get myself out there more so I can clear out this fear of what are people thinking when I do this? What is really happening as I show up and I talk about tarot and I talk about astrology, and when I talk about these things that even though for me they're what I would consider normal because it's what I've been living in my life for at least 10 years now. I've been stepping into this more esoteric space. I've been stepping into tarot. I've been stepping into meditation and astrology and understanding how that plays out. There is still this underlying fear of what will people think of me. I have an engineering degree. I did quality inside of an engineering, very highly regulated space for years, right? And now I'm talking about this. And why is that so scary? And what is it that I need to clear out? And can I make this work for me? What am I willing to let go of to be willing to really show up in the way that this feels so important for me? And so I am trying more and more and doing different things in different ways and really trying to not hold myself back. Something that I was contemplating was I am someone who loves public speaking. I will get in front of 500 people and thank them for being here and talk about whatever it is I need to talk about, and then move upon my day feeling the most excited, uplifted, joyous I could feel, right? I thrive on public speaking. That is just something I've always enjoyed. And yet sometimes I don't even want to share what it is that I'm saying or what I think because I get this just weird fear, right? I could talk about the same thing in front of a stage of 500 and not worry because there's this extra fear of what online presence means to me, right? There's this extra fear of what if, how are other people going to perceive this, right? And so I'm really working through that during this eclipse season. And some days I can sit in that hanged man energy, the card that I pulled at the end of last episode, and I feel at peace with it. And then some days there's that inner what if, that Three of Swords showing up. And I'm really working on clearing that out, guys. So I like to share this with you because the other thing that I love to do is show that I am doing it. As someone with science engineering background, we have a hypothesis and we test it out, right? I'm showing that I am doing this work too. I like to show up and do this work too. I like to be here showing it, doing it. I read for myself because it's important for me to read for myself. If I can't read for myself, how am I going to read properly for anyone else? If I can't guide myself, yes, having a mentor, having other people that I talk to is really important. But if I can't understand the language of what I'm speaking, how can I speak it to somebody else, right? And so I'm really in the trenches doing the work so that I can also do the work for others. I can read for others. I can share what's on my heart and what's in the cards and what's the message and what's coming through for you or whoever it is for you here on this podcast as I pull cards at the end, for anyone who sits down to have a reading with me, for anyone who journeys into a deeper container, right? All of those things. And so it's just me showing up and being me and making sure that I'm out there doing the things that I love, and really showing up and speaking is so important to me. And so I'm doing it and I'm sharing it with you so you can see that it's doable too, right? And that's important to me. And so I'm just making sure that I'm still doing that. I'm doing that. and I'm sharing with you as I do it because it's fun. It's fun to do that. So that's what's going on. And I wanted to also come talk because we are in between the eclipses. And so we had the eclipse on the 7th, and we'll have a solar eclipse on the 21st. And so we're in between. And so I felt wrong to wait until the next eclipse was about to happen to kind of check in and see how everyone's doing. So that's what I'm here. That's why I wanted to come do again today. And it may be a little bit of a shorter one, but that's okay. Not every podcast has to be, a half hour. Not every podcast has to be an hour. Sometimes they'll be longer, sometimes they'll be shorter. But this is a really nice opportunity for me to check in, and maybe I'll pause and I'll do some more after. I don't know. We're going with what I have time for right now, and what I have time for is checking in. So that's what's going on. And the other thing that I'm finding with this speaking, with sharing, is that sometimes it is speaking that's easier out loud, which is why I love having the podcast as an opportunity. Sometimes I feel like my words can fall flat when I'm writing them all out. I have tried to rewrite this offer. I have this retainer, I guess. I have something that I've had listed on my website for a long time, but I don't think that I've really been able to convey in written form how amazing of a thing it is. And so I'm trying to also find other ways to share from my heart what it is that I'm offering. And that's been interesting because it's like trying to convey an idea and not necessarily knowing the exact right words to say on paper when I could sit and talk to somebody about it and feel so good about sharing it. But then as soon as I go to write it out, I just extra thoughts and extra doubt and extra uncertainty. Maybe it has to do with how I have written in the past, because as a technical writer, you're supposed to have as few words as on the page as possible, which is good. It's helpful to have just enough words to get the message across. But also sometimes that can leave it lacking. So the offer that I'm working through, how to best describe it, when I write it out, at its core, it's the ability to get a tarot reading every day, just a single card pull to understand your day. But at the heart, of it, it's a journey together of guidance and support. And it's, yes, I'm going to pull a card, but I'm also going to share words of advice that pop into my head through the day, or a picture of something beautiful if it pertains to getting through the block we're trying to get through, or a song that I hear that fits the moment and is like, hey, send this along, or a meditation if I come up with a meditation to send. And so on its surface, the describing of it is so bland compared to what I feel inside. And so this is also part of my Three of Swords journey through trying to figure out my house of career, is that I'm not a singular, just a tarot reader, right? It's like there's more to it. And so it's like, what am I clearing out so that I can step into this bigger, more exciting version of me and my business? And what does that mean? And getting it out there, and how does that look, right? And so those are things that I am grappling with right now at this moment. And it's funny because human design is something that I have played with, dabbled with, similar to the way I dabble with astrology. I play around with human design from time to time and understanding what that looks like and what does that really mean, and what is the design of me is really the big thing. Like what makes up my human design chart. And so I've been playing around with that. And one of the things that sometimes I do to simplify it is there are these things called profiles. And if you go by a profile to try to make it easier to understand yourself, it's similar to going by your sun sign or knowing what your astrology big three are. Like, it just puts a pretty picture on it all, maybe. But if I were to look at that, the suggestion is that I'm a 6-2, and sixes are supposed to be the people who kind of see the whole picture and then are the ones that do the guiding after living their life and processing it, and then want to share it with others so that you can guide others. And that very much relates, for me, it locks into the idea that my soul card is the Hierophant card, which is the person who understands the traditions and the values and then is able to share those traditions and values and with others, and also evolve them as needed into the current situation that we're in, the current times that you're living in, right? That is the Hierophant. The other number in my profile is the 2. And the 2 line is kind of this idea that it's someone who needs to hermit away, someone who does it in their own way, and kind of can be behind the scenes and just automatically understands how things work. And they can't really show the process as to how they got there, but they're just naturally good at things. And that makes me think of the actual Hermit card in tarot, which is Virgo, which is my 10th house. So that is my house of career, right? That is my house of visibility, is the Hermit card. This person who sometimes needs their own time to themselves, but has stuff to share with others. And it's just really interesting seeing how these things play together, and then looking at myself and trying to use that to then help guide others through their life, right? I want to be the example and then help others figure out their own processes. And so it's just, these are just eclipse thoughts. And I did want to show up and share with you guys because I love it. I love this form of public speaking. This is the stage I have right now. Someday I know I will be on more stages, but this is my stage at the moment. And so I'm happy to share with you guys. So how do we get through this next week? As we navigate these eclipse energies, what card? Let's pull a single card and see how can we kind of continue to navigate this time in between the eclipses as we work through some really tough energy going on. And we have the Hermit. So we're not getting distracted. We're coming back to ourselves. We're seeing what light we can shine from within ourselves. And we are doing what we can do to climb the mountain and be where we need to be and how we need to be there for ourselves primarily, knowing that our light is just another candle in the dark that can help light others. So that is your message for this upcoming week. That is your message for Eclipse. If you need support, guidance, go ahead, check out my Patreon. I'll put the link in the comments. Go ahead and start following me on here. Like the video, get it out to other people, share it. I'm so happy to be here sharing with you guys. So good luck. Reach out if you need me. I'm sending you all the love and magic.